I saw the trailer for The Flash earlier this year at the BFI IMAX. It came on and I thought, oh no, another comic book superhero film. But then Michael Keaton appeared as Batman, and that made me sit up and take notice. But is it any good though? It seems most of us don't think so, but surprisingly, I very much enjoyed this one. Right, before I start on The Flash, just wanted to give you an update of Creepshow Series 1 to 3 that I mentioned in the last video, the review of The Exorcist. I'm still very much enjoying every single one of these episodes, but wanted to tell you that the creep that holds the whole series together introduces and finishes each one with his cackling laugh and things. He's more often appearing as the cartoon character from the comic books that we know from the original films. So I just wanted to give you that update. I'm enjoying these so much, I might actually do a full review when I've finished, so stand by for that. Right, getting back to The Flash. Now, having seen the trailer at the IMAX, I wasn't really that intrigued to see it right now. However, My Fire Videos did a review in America of the new 4K disc, and he said that he very much enjoyed it and it was a bit of a surprise. So I'll leave a link to his review down below, but be warned, there's plenty of spoilers in that one. So if you don't want to know anything of what happens in this, then probably best to just dip into it and not watch the whole thing. But that review convinced me, because his judgment is usually pretty good, that I should get this from new. And so when I was in the HMV Swindon getting The Exorcist 4K, I was looking on the shelves and they didn't have The Flash out yet. And so I asked if they had any of the steelbooks of The Flash in. They got one delivered, it was still in the box, so it didn't even make it onto the shelf as it left the shop with me. And it is a beautiful steelbook. I really like the glossy finish of it. I wasn't sure it was the right thing to do by the steelbook or the standard release, but this was only £5 more at £29.99 as opposed to the £24.99 for the standard release. So it turned out to be a good purchase on my part, but you'll have to make up your own minds on the film. I'm not sure everyone is going to like the sort of comedic aspect of this. The aspect ratio is 1.90 to 1, which is the IMAX aspect ratio for those cinemas that don't have 1570 IMAX. They just have the video projection digital IMAX. And the sound defaults to Dolby Atmos, but there is an option for Dolby Digital 5.1. Both sounded exceptional in here, perhaps to the point that this is one of the best discs I've heard so far. You'll have to make up your own minds. I'm sure there have been better, but it was really impressive to me now that we got the speakers, the rear speakers in the right place on the rear wall. Both the discs have all the same extras on them. They're chock full of extras. I haven't had time to watch them all, but what I have watched I've found very interesting. Great to see the reproduction of the original Tim Burton Batcave, and also the reappearance of the wonderful Batmobile, and you see how that came about in these extras. So I haven't watched them all, as I said, but I do feel that they're worth looking at, so worth making the time if you can. The image quality is good, but I don't feel that it's up there among the best. I think so much of this has been reworked in a computer for the CGI that something gets lost. I suppose it all depends on how they output that CGI at the end of it. But originally this was shot in a mix of 4.5K and 8K digital video to produce a finished 4K digital intermediate. So what some people refer to as a genuine 4K disc. The colour wasn't as rich as some, but I think that was probably to its benefit, because some of these movies now are looking a bit too fake with the overly rich colours. So I like the look of this. It compares very well on the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is not quite as rich in terms of colour, which is what you would expect, but where the big difference is between the 4K and the Blu-ray is in the darker sequences. The 4K is just streets ahead of the Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray is good, as you would expect, so that may well be an option worth taking. Now, just why did I find that I enjoyed this as much as I did? Well, I look at this, and this was a bit of a surprise, and I suppose I should say, if you're a big fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League, then this may not be for you, because although I don't remember that film too well, even though I only watched it a short while ago, I felt that was more of a serious film. The young man who plays the Flash, Ezra Miller, he's almost a comedy sidekick. Well, that carries on in this, and even though I didn't particularly like that in Justice League, right from the start in this it somehow works. And Alfred, Batman's butler, is on the phone ringing around the superheroes for all the various catastrophes going off around the world and getting them involved to get things sorted out. He has to call the Flash as the last resort to go and save this area that's somehow collapsing into the ground. And it's just a hilarious opening where he goes to save this skyscraper that's about to fall into the floor below. And on the top floor of this skyscraper, which apparently is a hospital, is a maternity wards, and there's all these lovely babies lined up in these cots. And anyway, the building starts to collapse, the windows crack open, it tilts over, and all these babies go flying out. Whereupon, I mean, you might think this is pretty horrible really, but it's not, because they turn into caricatures, almost like Cabbage Patch dolls, and they're enjoying flying through the air. So anyway, the Flash goes into his supersonic mode or speed of light mode, and some of them can make him out when he's a bit slower, and they're giggling at the Flash working through to how to save them all. And there's a dog as well, a therapy dog, and I don't know what it is, a cross between a Jack Russell or something. And you don't actually see how he saves the dog, but keep watching right to the end of the end credits, or to the start of the end credits I should say, and you might see the hand come up to save the dog, who is reprising his role of falling through the air from that skyscraper. So that's how it starts. I hope that hasn't given too much away, but I was laughing at that, and it didn't really stop all the way through the film, which runs for 2 hours and 24 minutes, and that's why I enjoyed it. It's got its tongue firmly in cheek in this one, and that works with this sort of superhero film, and that's maybe what's been lacking in the previous ones, because they're so unreal, there's so many effects that I find I can't take them too seriously, at least. And the villains usually are computer generated, or they seem to be a lot of the time computer generated, and they just don't work, so the reality is lost and I'm not so involved. But in this, with all the humour, the good lines, and classic line from the Flash at the end when Bruce Wayne comes to meet him, and I won't say any more, but he uses a 4-letter word, and ordinarily I'd feel pretty shocked in a comic book superhero film, but because of the way this is, it just works, and that's why I liked it. Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, putting him in something that looked like the original suit, but they've been clever, they'd made it of a new rubber, it was more flexible, and he'd be able to act, he'd be able to look up like that rather than do the Batman look up that he had to do in Batman and Batman Returns. But Michael Keaton appeared on set and said, oh no, we can't do that, because of course that was what made Batman Batman, and perhaps something we lost in all the subsequent films. So he's the same Batman, and you'll see on here in the extras about how that came about. The original Batmobile they went to collect from a collector, it's somewhere in Britain, somewhere in England anyway, and you might even spot locations like St Paul's Cathedral and the London University. So if you're a Londoner like me and you know these places really well, and you didn't know where this was shot, you'll be picking them out, and that's quite special. You see something like this has been filmed in London, it's being passed off as America, it's just people are driving on the wrong side of the road because we don't drive on that side over here. But there are so many things about this I found myself liking. My wife didn't enjoy it too much at all, and I'm sure a lot of you won't, because you won't appreciate the humour, or you won't be ready for it. But it was just right for me, and that was why I enjoyed it. The plot does involve time travel, which is always a winner with me, and as you would expect with this version of The Flash, not everything goes as planned, and in fact everything turns into a bit of a disaster, and so he's got to set about putting that right. But it does give the makers an excuse, as they're going through time, to show us either CGI representations or the real actors and actresses of previous DC, well, characters who have gone before, mainly the superheroes. So you might see Christopher Reeve as Superman, Helen Slater as Supergirl, that sort of thing, but it doesn't let up until the very end of this film, and I very much enjoyed that aspect of it as well. I thought the makers did appreciate what they were doing, and giving fans, I suppose, fans of the very early DC superhero films, which might be earlier than you would expect, so evidently made by fans for fans, However, at the box office, with an estimated budget of $200 million, it only grossed at the worldwide box office $269 million. I think it deserved much better. Maybe there's reasons that I haven't thought of why people didn't want to go to the cinema to see this one, but let's hope enough people enjoy it on home video or on streaming and other services to make this one a success in the end. I think it deserves it, but you'll have to tell me what you think. But everyone's entitled to an opinion. I do listen to everyone, and you might point out something that I've completely missed, as indeed people did with Zack Snyder's Justice League. But just to be sure that I didn't get this one wrong, I did actually whiz through the film, or flash through the film a second time. Didn't watch all of it, maybe about 3/4 of an hour last night, having watched this a couple of nights ago, and I very much enjoyed it again. So it wasn't in my mind, it wasn't my imagination. As I said, my wife didn't fully enjoy it. I think it was the second version, the earlier version of The Flash, his younger self when he goes back in time. If that's not giving too much away, he was a bit of a nerd and he got on her nerves. Maybe he won't so much the next time, but it could be that people didn't get on with this film. I was so into it by then, I really didn't care. I was just laughing my head off for most of it. And I know there's some serious points to it. Supergirl appears in this, another version of Supergirl. She's quite hard-hitting, if you'll excuse the pun, but there's a few things that maybe people don't like that I was just looking straight through, because right from that opening scene with the Cabbage Patch Babies, I was just enjoying it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating similar content to this. Until the next video, bye bye for now.